Hello, thank you for joining me today to learn a little bit more about networking. I'm Marnie Lifshin. I am an Austin, Texas-based author, speaker, and marketing communications consultant. And very few things get me as excited as talking about networking. I am truly passionate about it because it's made such a huge difference in my own career, and I believe it can make a difference in your career and your business as well. So, networking is one of those topics we hear about a lot. You can't go to any conference without hearing about networking, right? There's always breakout sessions or keynote-noters talking about networking and why it's important. So why does it continue to be such a big part and a big focus for so many professional gatherings? And I think it's because networking is a term that is very often overused and very often misused. People kind of have this idea that networking is all about schmoozing, right? And oftentimes when I ask people, well, what is your definition of networking? It usually involves meeting new people. They kind of get this idea of bringing new people into their network. Well, I have a very different definition of networking, and I'd like to start out by sharing that with you today. My definition of networking is that it is the process of building and leveraging mutually beneficial relationships. Building and leveraging mutually beneficial relationships. And as you might expect, leveraging is really the key word in that definition because that's where the power of a good, solid network lies. It is in building not only new contacts, but leveraging the existing relationships that you have. That's where you're going to get a benefit out of it. And so a lot of networking is looking at the people around you, making sure that you have good, solid relationships with people who know you, who like you, who trust you, but then reaching out to them when you have a need, when you have a challenge, when you have an opportunity, and you need advice or access or information or resources. That's really where a network is powerful. It goes way beyond sales, which I think is how a lot of people think about it. It also goes way beyond looking for a new job or looking for new employees. It's about creating and maintaining those relationships with the people that help you do your job better, help your business run more smoothly and more profitably, and also they're the people that will support you as you go throughout your career. So a couple things to keep in mind always when you think about networking. First and foremost, it's about you. It's not about your job title. It's not about whether or not it's in your job description that you need to represent your company or do sales or business development. This is really about building and maintaining that army of advocates, those people that are going to help you be the most successful that you can possibly be. So remember, networking is about you. It's an investment. It has to be something that you're doing for yourself so that you have that support group. And it does take time. It does take sustained effort. So it can't be on an as-needed basis. It needs to be something that you build into your career plan, that you build into your weekly and monthly calendars. It needs to be something you do ongoing. It's also a skill anyone can develop. Again, I think we hear the word networking and we picture an event, right? We picture ourselves in some ballroom, in a hotel or a conference room somewhere, and there may be 30 people in the room, there may be 300, there may be 800. And you kind of picture yourself working the room, right? And so obviously, if you're a very extroverted, confident, charismatic, social person, you would have an advantage in that networking situation. But networking comes in a lot of different forms. And of course, today, it doesn't even have to be in person. You can network online. And so regardless of your personality, of your ability to schmooze well, regardless of your job, regardless of the type of company or organization you work for, regardless of how high you are up the food chain, so to speak, there is a way to develop a skill set to make sure that you are building that diverse and powerful network and that you're leveraging it in order to help you achieve your goals. So remember, anyone can network. It really is a set of skills. It's not about going out and shaking a bunch of hands and gathering a bunch of business cards. So let's talk a little bit about the key elements of a networking plan. The first thing, and this sounds obvious, but I don't think most people do this, the first thing is to have a goal in mind. You have to know what you're hoping to achieve by networking. And what I always tell people is drill down. So if I ask you, why are you networking? People will say, well, I need to meet more people. Well, what kind of people do you need to meet? What positions are they in? Where are you going to find them? What do you hope to get out of that relationship? What are you willing to put into that relationship, right? The more deep, or the deeper I should say, that you go in those questions in terms of why you want to revise or adapt or build your networking strategy, the more successful you're going to be at ultimately achieving it. So you need to have the why behind the networking. Don't just do it because you think you're supposed to, or because your boss told you you really should, or because you're unhappy in your current career position. You need to be clearer on what you're hoping to achieve specifically out of networking. Then you need to have effective use of your resources. And I think for most of us, the most precious resource is time. And networking can eat up a lot of time if you're not doing it right. If you're being scattered, if you're not focused, if you're overcommitting to various organizations and events and people. So you need to look at how you can most effectively use your time resources, also your money resources. It can be expensive to go to a lot of different events, to join a lot of different organizations, to have a lot of coffees and lunches and dinners out. So you need to make sure that you're really kind of thinking about, how do I utilize my resources most effectively in order to help me achieve those goals that I have outlined as specifically as possible. You also need an evaluation process, because if you don't sit and look at whether or not the way that you're networking, the places that you're networking, the people that you're adding to your network, if you're not looking at how they're helping you achieve your goals, then it's really hard to decide whether or not you're doing it well, whether or not you should go to that event again, whether or not you should rejoin that organization, whether you should put some time and effort into building a particular relationship. So you need to have an evaluation process. I sit down about every 5 or 6 months and look at where I've spent my networking time. Is it making sense? When I adapted my own career to add professional speaking and training, I needed to get access to a whole different set of people, right? I needed to build my brand, my credibility in a new venue. And so that's really when I had to sit down and look at the way I'd networked in the past and said, will this help me achieve my new career goals? And then I had to adapt. So that evaluation process is really, really important. And I recommend that you do it more than once a year, more than just when you think about it. Really sit down and look at where you're spending your time, and have you outgrown some of those organizations or some of those individuals. I think it's really important that every networking plan include a targeted but diverse group of organizations, events, and individuals. And I want to talk about individuals for just a moment, because oftentimes people say, well, I don't know who I need to meet specifically. You may not know their names, but you probably know the types of positions that they hold. So absolutely look at who you're spending your networking time with. It needs to be targeted in terms of helping you achieve your goals, but it also needs to be diverse enough that if you want to leave an industry or an organization or a company, you've got relationships outside your little immediate bubble. So a few common mistakes to avoid before we wrap up: not asking for help. Again, not leveraging that network that you've worked hard to build. Make sure you don't fall into that trap. Don't just always focus on adding new people. Reaching out only when you need help. People see that, people don't like that. So be sure that you maintain those relationships. You're active in those organizations consistently, not just when you need something. And then missing leadership opportunities in organizations. The best way to meet influencers is by becoming one yourself. So look for opportunities to build your own leadership skills with organizations, and follow up. Without question, following up can make or break your networking success. So I encourage you to really look at the way you're networking, look at the way you perceive networking. And if you do it in the right way, it will absolutely make a significant impact, a measurable impact on your career and or on your business. Thanks again for joining me, and happy networking.